got caught in the Sierra Nevada mountains in what turned out to be an early winter. Okay, winter came in early, and they did not get over the Sierra Nevada mountains, which were rugged mountains. So they were forced, kind of like we talked about Lewis and Clark, if they'd have gone the wrong way on the Marias River, they were forced to winter in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which would not be something easy to survive. So again, in 1846, the Donner Party, which was like the Bidwell Party, got caught in the Sierra Nevada mountains. What happened is it was an early winter. Snow came in early, kind of like here in Moreland. I'll guarantee you this snow that we received, this pretty big snow we received last weekend, won't leave. You will not see that snow leave until March or April. I'll guarantee it, because we're in the Bighorn Basin here, and we just, you look at the climate, like it's supposed to be 51 in Billings today. Okay, 37 here. We had when they put the map up of the weather, and I watched the Montana weather each night. They have northern Wyoming. Of all the places in Montana and northern Wyoming, we were the coldest yesterday, had the coldest low, because we're in this Bighorn Basin, and so this snow is going to stay. Well, these guys get in the Sierra Nevadas, and early winter comes in, and that is going to stay, okay? And they had to build crude shelters and struggled like crazy to survive, because they're going to have to spend their winter in the Sierra Nevada mountains because they got caught in an early winter. To give you an idea how bad it got, they considered soup made of boiled leather and powdered bones of animals as a luxury. That was a luxury. If you could come up with soup made of boiled leather, and you could come up with powdered bones that were smashed from animals into basically powder, that was a luxury. Well, there were 96 people in the Donner Party. 41 died that winter in the Sierra Nevadas. 41 out of 96 died, which meant how many survived? 45, right? Oh, 55, right? So, of the 96 persons who started out with the Donner Party, 41 died. 55 survives. Now this is kind of interesting, ladies. Listen to this statistic. Of the 41 that died, 2/3 of the men, 2/3 of those were men, and 1/3 were women, which means that of the 41 people that died, 2/3 that survived were women. So 2/3 of the men in the party perished, and 2/3 of the women and children survived. Seems like an odd statistics. Now those survivors, when they came out of this, and I'll talk about that in a minute, most had lost toes to frostbite. They were accused when they were rescued of bad conduct, murder, and even cannibalism. And that's when you eat a human being. Okay? Now I'll tell you what, I don't know, you know, we laugh and say, geez, that's weird. I'm not sure what it would be like if your buddy Fred died, you know, of starvation or froze to death, and you were about to the point. That's a good question. Would you rather die, or would you rather eat, you know, the leg meat of your buddy? I don't know. I mean, seriously, we're never going to be put in that position, probably. But I'm just saying that would be quite a choice to make. So many of the survivors lost their toes to frostbite. Travelers were accused of bad conduct. I think when panic sets in and your life's on the line, you say and do things you probably shouldn't. That's what they mean by bad conduct. There's some accusations, really never proven, that people actually murdered one another because of anger, rage, or panic. And there are even rumors of cannibalism in which the survivors ate the dead to stay alive. Now think about this. If you're one of the survivors of this, are you going to have the same viewpoints on what happened? No. You're going to have very differing viewpoints. You're going to be biased. You're maybe not gonna want everybody to know what happened. Your recollections might be weak because, I mean, you could probably go about half crazy in that situation. And so we really don't know 100% sure what happened during this Donner Party, ill-fated journey, but there are rumors of the things we talked about. But I think the cannibalism was well more documented as something that probably happened than anything else. So that'll take us to the California Gold Rush. California Gold Rush. Because these early settlers to California went there to kind of start a new life. And all of a sudden, gold is going to be discovered and people are going to rush to California in hordes. Now they say that by 1848 there were several hundred, which would mean less than 1,000, Americans had settled in California. That's all that really moved westward by 1848 was less than 1,000, several hundred. That's not a lot of people really. We have 450 kids in the school. So several hundred would be less than probably twice as many kids in the school that actually took the trip to California for a better life. Well, among those early settlers in California, already there, was a guy from Switzerland. And his name was John A. Sutter. John A. Sutter. He was among the first settlers of that several hundred Americans that settled there before the gold rush. John A. Sutter from Switzerland. And he had a sawmill and a fort at present-day Sacramento, California. Okay? He had a sawmill and a fort at present-day Sacramento. Well, on the morning of January 24th of 1848, on the morning of January 24th of 1848, one of his employees, a fellow by the name of James W. Marshall, detected flakes of yellow metal at the bottom of a stream where they were building a new sawmill. Okay, again, on the morning of January 24th of 1848, one of Sutter's employees, James W. Marshall, detected flakes of yellow metal at the bottom of a stream where they were building a new sawmill. On the morning of January 24th of 1848, one of Sutter's employees, James W. Marshall, detected flakes of yellow metal at the bottom of a stream where they were building a new sawmill. Well, guess what that shiny metal was? Gold. Absolutely, it was gold. Now, Sutter, when he was informed by Marshall and the men present about this discovery, Sutter really wanted to keep this a secret until that new sawmill was built. Because he knew if it went out, the mill wouldn't get built for obvious reasons. So he really had a desire to keep the discovery a secret until the new sawmill was built. Well, despite that desire, nobody kept it a secret, and the news of gold discovery in California spread like wildfire. Okay, spread like wildfire. And settlers flooded into California. You know, stories of huge fortunes to be made danced in everybody's head. The rumor got back east, and I mean settlers flooded into California hoping to get rich quickly on this massive amounts supposedly of gold. So thousands of Americans sold everything they owned that lived in the east and rushed west to the gold fields of California. What did they call those people? 49ers, because they did it in 1849. Thus, the San Francisco 49ers football team. Okay? So thousands of Americans sold all they owned and joined the rush of the 49ers to the gold fields of California. People rushed like crazy. And those people that rushed to the gold fields of California became known as 49ers because they did it in 1849. Well, Americans forged the Great Plains through the mountain passes. They had wagon trains, as you can imagine, and it took them about 5 months from the eastern seaboard, which would be in this area over here, to the gold fields of California, which really is pretty good time. About 5 months it would take them to go overland from the eastern seaboard. Obviously, if you left from somewhere west of the eastern seaboard, it took you less time. But about 5 months of travel to get from the eastern seaboard to the gold fields of California. Now this is kind of interesting. I want you just to kind of listen to this. If you can picture in your mind these wagons filled full of everything you can imagine moving that whole distance. Well, many of the trails along the route were lined with household goods that were thrown out of the wagons to lighten the load. You know, they packed all this stuff to take with them and figured out how difficult it was to get it over there. And so if you went along the trails to California, you would see household goods that were thrown out to lighten the load. You'd see dead bodies of animals, graves of those that were struck down by Indians, or disease, or hunger, or thirst, or cold, or heat. It wasn't an easy travel over there. So it would not be uncommon to see along the trail household goods that were just thrown out of the wagon to lighten the load. Dead bodies of animals. Could be different types. What would you think would be dead bodies of animals that were what? Shot, maybe butchered. Okay, maybe animals that died along the way because of the stress. You would see graves of men and women and children that were struck down by either Indians, or they were struck down by disease, or maybe were struck down by hunger, maybe thirst, maybe cold or heat. It was very, very difficult trek across the United States. What's that?
It's amazing that people would do it.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Now, these 49ers, once they got there, they jammed into lawless mining camps. What is a lawless mining camp? No law. And so people are stealing from each other and murdering each other, etc. And so they had to establish something we know as what? Ever heard this type of law? Close. Vigilante law. Well, the Pinkertons came later. What's vigilante law? Where people take the law into their own hands. Okay, and in some of these mining camps, and there were some in Montana, at Virginia City, and Bannock, and Alder Gulch, these vigilantes were actually kind of appointed by the people that lived there, and they weren't law officers, but they would take the law in their own hands. I mean, if you screwed up, they didn't put you through a long trial, they just took care of you and went on to the next. You know, that's vigilante law. Okay, well, what we'll do tomorrow is we'll explain if people were very successful in this gold search, and then we're going to talk about the Indian problem that results, because where are these settlers coming through? Indian burial grounds, hunting grounds that are disrupting the Indians' way of life, and they're going to respond. And we'll see what happens then.
Is that what you want? Yeah.